Hello Andy, welcome to our channel Disc Civil Services in Detail, guiding aspirants to become officers. Let's begin our session of the Hindu Current Affairs Analysis and Answer Writing Strategies of December 15, 2025. So here are the important articles from today's newspaper and frontline lo anta important from exam point of view aithe em levu, but once again reminding how many of you are trying to answer the quizzes which we are posting in our official Telegram channels, and what about the questions which we are giving to write the mains answers రాయమని చెప్తున్నాం కదా. Previous class also I have announced about these questions regarding that education, and as well as we have framed few questions which having high chances of appearing upcoming competitive exams ani. And what about the relevant PYQs mains 2020-2021 లో ఇచ్చిన questions ని I have posted in our official Telegram channel. Make sure whatever we are posting, you have to go through them and you have to attempt them, and you have to make a gist and notes out of it and write it in your current affair notes only. So these are the few updates regarding our series, and coming to the article, 11 dead as gunmen fire on Jewish event in Sydney. Cold wave alert for 4 districts. Bihar leader Nitin Navin is new BJP working president. Sarpanch poll showing good results. Good show. Obviously, at the state level, when the ruling party is Congress, they will definitely show the one which at Sarpanch level elections. Good show ఉంటుంది. And yes, coming to the left side of the page, there's an article regarding this air pollution and invisible epidemic. Why air pollution is India's largest health threat. This is highly important, and generally this is given in the digital version, and first time, very rarely, once in a while, they give it in hard copy too. So today they have given about this, and this is completely relevant to air pollution is contributing nearly to 2 million deaths in 2023 as per the latest state of global air report, primarily from cardiovascular diseases, strokes, COPD and diabetes. So this is something relevant to air pollution and its impact on India's healthcare. So when we were discussing about air pollution relevant aspects alongside this NCR Delhi regions, we have discussed the reasons, challenges, initiatives, objectives and consequences because of that air pollution, everything. Again, it's a kind of giving the summary of the complete article, whatever we have read in the last 4-5 months. And I told you many times, whenever these October to Delhi, this is the time where they discuss a lot about this Delhi air pollution, and they come up with the observation synopsis and everything. They try to come up with few initiatives to tackle that, but I don't know how far they are implementing to tackle that, because there's a lots of other dimensions relevant to these transport, industrial emissions, carbon emissions, construction related, waste management controlling related, health system integrations. There's a lots of other aspects too. And why this is in news again? Because of the report, as India's air quality crisis is both widespread and deeply entrenched, 256 cities out of 2025, 150 exceeded the national particular matter 2.5. So when we were discussing about these particular air pollution relevant topics, we have discussed every time about this particular matrix. So what is this PM? What is this comprises of? And what it do when it enters the body? And how it is impacting the livelihood, health in different sections of the society at the different ages. So coming back to the article, again, India's official air quality index continues to cap this, and it is tallying and monitoring the air pollution levels at the Delhi region. So the health burden of toxic air is stark. According to the Quality Air Life Index, Air Quality Life Index of the University of Chicago's Energy Policy Institute, nearly 46% of Indians lives in regions where air pollution significantly reduces life expectancy. That is the one observation from this article. And second one is National Clean Air Program, which has been initiated some improvements, but its targets remain modest. So therefore, they are focusing on health-centered multi-sectoral strategy, which is now very much important. And coming back to the article, they are focusing on India's air quality crisis, and as well as they are discussing about what this PM 2.5 do when it enters into the body, how it is impact this respiratory related chronic diseases and illnesses and neurological impacts, as well as how it is impacting the maternal and neonatal health, because the one who is with expecting or carrying baby, those pregnant women, elder people, newborns are the one who suffer a lot because of this inhalation of this polluted air. As well as there are other aspects also where most of the contributors are vehicular emissions, industrial processes, dust from construction, demolition, informal waste burning, household biomass, and others like stubble burning and everything. In this article again they have given an article which is discussing about the stubble burning, and the observations are sincerely that since 2023 the level of stubble burning has been reduced in both combined Haryana and Punjab. We will be discussing about that too. So again, coming back to the article, transport transformation, industrial control, strict enforcement, pollution control technologies has to be done in a phased manner from coal-based processes. And construction regulations should be there, waste management reform should be there, that segregation should be done, decentralized treatment should be done, biomethanation, scientific landfills should be done properly, health system integrations where they should focus more on district level advisories, etc. So they have come up with few observations and few initiatives, and they are also suggesting few mechanisms to tackle this toxic air which is a burden, health burden, especially for India. So this is all about this article, and I'll add this in official Telegram channel, this slide. If possible, you just go through once and try to draw important inputs, whatever you feel like. You can write it in your mains relevant answers. And this one related to my rights not protected, says survivor in actor assault case, where we were discussing about recent announcement about this Avalkopam. It is the again something related to that, where she is saying since 2020 I'm struggling to get this case on track properly, but I observed that the case was not being handled everything. So here again the reason for I'm discussing about this is simply how justice sometimes or judgment sometimes trigger the very what it's called survivor itself, and because she was fighting for the justice since long time, and even the acquitted was like, so she is saying simply um, she lists out the reasons why she lost faith in the trial court and what happened next, and it's a kind of giving her observations and everything. Just to make an update about this, I'm just discussing, that's it. And the reason for again discussing about it, the judicial 16 years, 20 years, 10 years, which takes for these trials and everything, no? Finally, how they came up with the judgments and everything, how it is impacting the survivors and the victims, another chappadanki, I'm just adding that. So yes, coming back to the editorials, there are highly important articles today. So this is something related to time to pass. The RBI should wait to see the impact of lowest interest rates on demand. So this is something related to inflation, monetary policy committee, RBI's decision, and why the inflation in November is low. What are the different takeaways from that, and what are the reasons? What about the statistical basis, and what about the factors which keeping in mind that skewed the current consumer price indexes, and what about the food prices and everything? So what are the reasons? If you remember last year 2024 when we were discussing about this, somewhere around October to December, we have discussed again these kind of inflation related aspects. Those are again because of those prices high, because of this vegetables gani, food products gani, and something related to metals and exports exclusively related to these metals and everything gani. We were discussing about that, and we discussed at that time top TOP, tomato, onions, potato are the one because of which these prices fluctuates vegetables, and main other reasons are like storages gani, transportation gani, and produce yielding itself because of these draft issues and everything gani. So most of the times the inflations fluctuates mainly because of the product prices differences in vegetables, food products, pulses, and those again happens because of the climatic and weather conditions. So it is something related to India's monetary policy, it is something related to the inflation, either the inflation, retail inflation undo, reasons for fluctuating, and what are the factors led to and how it can be addressed, and what is the current inflation data according to RBI's monetary policy committee and everything. So this is something related to prelims, and the mains ki you can write these points as an analysis if you want, and what is this monetary policy is all about, what it is relevant to, how it works, what are the rules, roles, functions, and who are the members, who is the chairman, and how they get selected. All these things I'll do a separate video and I'll release it, and because MPC was always important. Previous years questions lo undi RBI inflations ఈ టాపిక్స్ లేకుండా క్వశ్చన్ పేపర్ రాదు. అండ్ ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ అంటే తెలుసు కదా, rise in prices. So rise in prices ani general language lo kakunda you use the technical terminology and find out what are the types of inflation, what are the reasons for inflations, what are the challenges in handling those inflations, and what are the recent observations from inflation point of view, especially in Indian economy. So what RBI is doing and what central government is doing to tackle that. So these are the few other dimensions which you have to go when you are doing this. So coming back to this another one important, an anomaly. The center must make burnt area estimates of stubble public. This is relevant again to stubble burning. So in the statement to Parliament, the Environment Ministry said that Punjab and Haryana had collectively reduced the fire incidents by 90% in 2025 compared to 2022. So here there are the observations which he is talking about. The burning of farm stubble, the traditional shortcut to quickly shed fields of paddy remnants and everything, and the reasons how these can be in the last decade has declined and reduced in Delhi and surrounding areas. What are the different kinds of steps taken to address these? The center and state governments have been employing carrot stick approach. మీకు గుర్తుంటే కనుక మనం 2 months back కూడా చెప్పాం, where the Supreme Court clearly mentioned the one who is doing this stubble burning, find them, punish them, even announce the jail term, and the one who is taking help of technology or environmental friendly approaches to tackle this stubble burning or something, reward them and give them some incentives kind of, so that appreciate them for the good deeds with which they are doing kind of funny. And I mentioned about this carrot and stick approach which comes in your public administration, and how the Supreme Court is suggesting the state and central governments to tackle this issue and chepnapudu I have clearly explained about this. So providing subsidies to the farms equipment, combining the harvesters, tractors, as well as incentivizing or collecting the stubble burn to sell them to thermal plants for co-firing and everything. These are the few other initiatives which can be helpful to control this. And what are the other kinds of measures to analyze the chemical makeup of these pollutants which comes and trace the weightage of the stubble burning, etc. As well as we discussed about what happened since 2020 and what happening now in 2025 and how this issue can be tackled and cheppi. So again in this article it's a kind of sum up of all these things, and they are clearly discussing about using the data from another set of satellites called meteosats or something geostationary, meaning and everything. You can fire count reduction ela tagginchochu, ela cheyochu, and what about the other observations, actual observations, and what about the original counts, and what the Supreme Court of India is saying and suggesting the environment ministry bodies, and how to calculate these set and burnt areas to gauge the stubble burning trends and what they can do, and what about the year wise burnt area estimates, why it's not public. These kind of other observations where Supreme Court is questioning and guiding the Ministry of Environment to take care of this. So this is something related to simple ga cheppalante stubble burning, environment, burnt area, ministries, Supreme Court, state governments. So everyone has to be come up with a few initiatives to tackle this and collect this and shift it towards the focusing on environment friendly, take the help of satellite studies and count down the number of burnt areas and everything. What are the recent observations? So this is something relevant to ఒక ఓవరాల్ గా లాస్ట్ ఫ్యూ డేస్ లో మనం జరిగింది చదివింది వన్స్ అగైన్ సమ్ అప్ అనుకుందాం. సో దిస్ ఇస్ ఆల్ అబౌట్ దట్. Coming back to this article, the right movement to boost India-Ethiopia ties. I told you many times, whenever any representative comes from any other nation to India, or any our honorable PM or president or any delegates goes to other nations, the first things we have to go through the international affairs perspective lo a format. India to that particular state or particular nation, what are the different multilateral, bilateral relations, what we are doing on an average, and what are the observations we have. India-Ethiopia ties has deep and long-standing roots. So here in this article, we are going to discuss about different dimensions and areas, sectors where they are coordinating with each other and supporting each other for the development as well as economical perspective. So let's see. Here in this article, they have given few areas where they are going to work in future for benefiting each other, as well as what are the different areas and bilateral exchanges, technology exchanges, education, investment, agriculture, mining sectors and etc. where they are focusing more, as well as there are few critical challenges are there between both the nations in perspective of connectivity. So let's see, strategic autonomy in trade and logistic is very much important, and India is working a lot to secure that. And coming back to the article, there are keywords like Horn of Africa, Red Sea, landlocked nations. Because Ethiopia is the one which is landlocked nations and it lies in South Africa, as we already discussed, and it is in the Horn of Africa. So that's the reason I told you, whenever you read international relations, first thing you have to do, sit with atlas or keep your atlas along with your newspaper, so that it will be easy for you to identify the locations. Then only if any map based questions comes in your exam, it will be easy for you to locate them exactly. So here it is the Ethiopia, and it is called as Horn of Africa. ఒక్కసారి హార్న్ ఆఫ్ ఆఫ్రికా అని మీరు కొంచెం చూసుకుంటే కనుక, గూగుల్ చేస్తే మీకు క్లియర్ కట్గా అర్థమైపోతుంది. హియర్ ఇట్ కమ్స్ గల్ఫ్ ఆఫ్ సుయేజ్, రెడ్ సీ, గల్ఫ్ ఆఫ్ ఏడెన్. Ethiopia is surrounded by Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, South Sudan and Sudan. So the land which is surrounded by land on all sides is called as landlocked country. That's the reason Ethiopia is called as landlocked country, and it is also surrounded by this Indian Ocean on one side, sorry, this side, Red Sea and Gulf of Suez and Aden, as well as it is the main anchoring nation of southern Africa. It has lots of other significances too. So Ethiopia, with a population of around 1.109 million as per 2024, one of Africa's fastest growing economies, and it is growing strategic and economic interest to major partners including India, and India is playing a very key role in these partnerships. So here in this article, despite internal challenges, Ethiopia is continuing to be viewed as regional anchor of stability with effective military. This is the one, as well as a central role in the evolving politics of this sub-region. And there are the areas where multiple domains Ethiopia is maintaining the engagements, where recent efforts to diversify access through Somalia, Eritrea, as which I already mentioned in that atlas point of view, underlining its desire to securing strategic autonomy in trade and logistics. So how it is having that deep ties with India? Yes, again, of course, in education, investment, agriculture, mining again in gold, critical minerals, renewable energies, rare earth minerals. These are the one where they are focusing more. And coming back to another most important collaboration between the two nations, that is teachers. So Ethiopia's education, India is like a backbone where it is sending Indian teachers and university professors which having this system and shaping generation of students, earning enormous respect. Ethiopia is the pilot country for the Pan-African E-Network project in 2007 and has maintained long-term cooperation with IIT Delhi for tele-education, demonstrating strong receptivity to modern education technologies. And today, Ethiopia sends one of the highest numbers of African students of India. And often through government funded programs, they both exchange different kinds of educational programs and everything. So this is one. And this education partnership expanding through digital learning, vocational training, university linkages and new scholarship frameworks, which remaining one of the most promising program and for developing strong bilateral cooperation between the two nations. Other than that, investments in defense cooperation, investments in education, investments in agriculture, mining are the other areas. And they are also focusing on key opportunities where they are focusing on infrastructural logistics constraints must be addressed regarding these exchanges between the two nations. And most importantly, defense cooperation is another promising, as I already mentioned, where Ethiopia is one of the first foreign countries to receive Indian military assistance, beginning with the establishment of the Harar Military Academy in 1956. It may come as a prelims in your any competitive exams because he is in a 4-day tour and they are developing strong ties with South Africa. If you remember in 2024 also, somewhere around this November-December months, our Honorable PM has visited these Southern African nations, and we were discussing about different exchanges between these two nations. Again, military refresh requires fresh training and modern equipment to replace aging Soviet era systems. These Ethiopian people and India, which is competitively priced and battle tested platforms. So new MOU on defense cooperation and first meeting of joint defense cooperation held this year. That provided a institutional framework for expanding training and keeping them aside. India lines of credit under India Development and Economic Assistance Schemes. These are the other programs where they are supporting with credit within the IMF guidelines. And potential for new phase, yes, both countries enters new phases of development. Ethiopia now a member of BRICS, that is another most important point from this article. And Ethiopian official repeatedly expressing strong interest in attracting Indian investment, especially in pharmaceuticals, agro processing, light manufacturing and mining, as which I already mentioned. And India could be helpful by updating bilateral agreements such as double taxation avoidance agreement, bilateral investment treaty to support private sector engagement, etc. And Ethiopia in turn needs to address long-standing investor concerns which are related to this foreign exchange availability. So these are the ones. BRICS G20 platforms also framework strengthens this political convergence between the two nations, as well as demonstrating success stories of Indian investments within Ethiopia and across Africa could help both the countries build wider relationship and regional partnerships. Under African Continental Free Trade Area, Ethiopian-based Indian companies can now access East African and continental markets more easily. That can again build this connectivity, trade, and transportation become easy, so you can do more number of exchanges, and export imports will also get benefited, will improve further, the economy can get improved, etc. kind of. So finally, prospects for India Ethiopia relationships are bright. Renewed political will, targeted reforms, strategic alignment, partnerships can evolve into one of the most dynamic and mutually beneficial relationship, as well as few other dimensions which are వర్కింగ్ ఫర్ వే ఫార్వర్డ్. ఇదంతా చదివిన తర్వాత ఈ ఆర్టికల్లో ఫ్యాక్ట్స్ రిలేషన్స్ అనాలిసిస్ తీసుకొని యూ డూ ఏ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఫార్మాట్ విచ్ వీ ఆల్వేస్ సజెస్ట్, లైక్ bilateral relations, multilateral relations. What are the common groupings of these two nations like Z20, South South, BRICS, etc. And what are the common challenges, what are the common interests, what they are working, what are the recent MOUs, and what about past historical background of these two nations, international relations and connectivity, kind of how they evolved these relations all these years, and Ethiopia's significance in southern African nations as well as global as well as Indian perspective, and how India is helping them, Southern Africa as well as Ethiopian perspective. And other than this, you suggest your way forward, what can be done so that we can do more kind of exchange of these education or investment or rare earth minerals, which we are focusing more for the building strong infrastructural and industrial perspective. This is all you have to do from your perspective, and if possible, when you are writing something related to Southern African or India-Ethiopia relations, try to draw the map and locate them, and try to draw those Suez canals and everything. And it contains lots of other facts also. I will provide in our official Telegram channel. And so this is all about it, and it is something related to free speech, where the Ranveer Allahabadiya versus Union of India case is going on since last 4-5 months. We were discussing about freedom of speech, how it cannot affect feelings or emotions of others, and what about the content which is provided in the internet, and how these social media influencers are using their freedom of speech, and how it can be controlled, where the regulation of online content, creation of neutral and autonomous bodies is very much important. So what Supreme Court said, what government is doing, etc. kind of. So here in this article there are few keywords like information technology and section of Bharata Nyaya Samhita, as well as few cases related to Kaushal Kishore 2023 bench, and article 19, 21, 24, as well as Sahara India Real Estate Corporation Limited versus Securities and Exchange Board of India, and others Cooperative Housing Society Limited versus Union of India versus others. There are few cases, Digital Services Acts 2022 and Network Enforcement Act 2017, the Online Safety Act 2023. So finally, free speech is the whole thing, kind of. These abuses should not be abusive language, or language which hurts others should not be done. The Supreme Court again saying that ultimately one has to focus more, and what this constitutional proprietary demands. So it's something related to multi-dimensional approach of polity, constitution, Supreme Court, bodies, social media, acts, and previous cases relevant to this particular freedom of speech. So I'm going to do a separate session on this, because it requires lots of in-depth analysis and it takes lots of energy time. If I add this in our session, it will take more than 1.5 hours. So that's the reason I'm going to do a separate, where we are discussing about this rights, laws, regulations, internet, media, government, Supreme Court. Finally, how attempt to further regulating the right to freedom of speech and expression, which should be scrutinized, kind of things we are going to discuss only. Yes, this one about, are methane emissions in India being missed? Again, somewhere around last year, November to December, there were lots of discussions about carbon emissions, methane emissions, wetland emissions, etc., where they were discussed. This is the time where they discuss a lot about pollution. They talk a lot about controlling mechanisms, initiatives, but how far they are implementing, forget about that. This is highly important. So decentralized way of approach, bottom up approach is very much important. To control these emissions, policy frameworks are very much important. How different states are working, and here they have taken Tamil Nadu state model of what it's called how they work to control these mechanisms, and frontline people how they are working, etc. So satellites show that emissions at key sites can be up to 10 times higher than estimates. So they have taken about data from these what is called different technology relevant, and how they are focusing more on how what happening these landfills, why India's methane emissions are from the waste sector, unlike agriculture or energy sectors which require complex long-term reforms. What about Swachh Bharat missions programs kind of? So, however, the approach depends upon accurate recurring data, which is often scarce in developing countries. So, what India is doing, what ISRO is talking, what about the carbon mappers, and what about the different climate trace and waste mapping, collate this global monitoring data, how it is combining with what about this satellite surveys, how Delhi is an example, setting an example. Since 2018 emissions inventory estimates are working, and satellites showing that emissions at key sites can be 10 times higher than estimates. And are the satellites which they are showing, and are the targets which they are getting at ground level, and at the ground level initiatives which they are working more on tracing, tracking, and converting these poor wastage coverage, gas collections failure, illegal dumping, etc., which is creating a powerful feedback loop, etc., space based detection guides, etc. So what's happening? In sum up, it's completely discussing about what fuels this landfill fires, and what is more potent than carbon dioxide over a 24 period year, as well as what strategies creating more powerful ecosystem where the satellites can detect hotspots, ground teams investigate and fix these leaks, etc., and standardizing data sharing, ensuring insights reach these um, because biggest environmental challenges into our smartest climate solution is very much important. And India being a nation with excellent fuel for kitchen stoves utilized from these methanes and everything, CNG vehicles, power plants, etc., and methane is generating naturally by decomposing organic matter, prehistoric process and everything. So what is impossible, what is possible, how it can be tackled any satellite data paranga. It's a kind of analysis, it's a kind of what kind of suggestions they are giving, so that we can draw way forward solutions from this article, and we can talk about something related to methane emissions, targeting leakages, how India can work on to control these, being a nation with using highest kitchen stove, highest kitchen gases and everything. What about the municipal waste guidelines and everything? So limitations ఏంటి, అబ్జర్వేషన్స్ ఏంటి, అవన్నీ కూడా ఇక్కడ ఇచ్చారు. How these urban local bodies can work and trace, ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఇచ్చారు. It's a kind of case study observation. I'll add this slide. If you want to go through, you just go through. Otherwise, it's just a synopsis and analysis which you can write in your environmental related questions, and that's it. And this is very, very, very important. A people led climate intelligence movement. So climate change, we are talking a lot. Climate change, nationally determined contributions. We are focusing a lot on tracking emissions, adaptation progresses, climate finance to show movements to control these 1.5 degrees Celsius ఏదైతే ఉందో బేలం మిషన్, again talking about this global goal on adaptation. Now globally monitoring, reporting and verification, that is MRV systems, have become central to climate transparency. So here in this article again they have taken a model from MRV, that is monitoring, reporting, verification, CB based MRV. So community based MRVs are the one initiatives which are becoming relevant and working lot. And Tamil Nadu's model they have discussed here, how this was created to change exactly that, enabling villages to generate systematic science ready environmental data which is weaving traditional ecological knowledge with field based monitoring of rainfall, temperature, soils, water health, biodiversity, fish catching, cropping patterns, livelihood, even carbon stocks and other emissions. So this evidence is integrated into digital dashboard that informs decision making across villages, district and state levels. So simple ga cheppalante, these community based MRVs are nothing but involving the local communities, and frontline communities and villages became the first one which are monitoring, tracking and giving these samples and comparing these different kinds of emissions and situations at the climate change relevant perspectives lo చూసి using the technologies. From this they are collecting the data and giving it to the governance, and then they, from using the technologies and everything, they are comparing and coming up with few observations to tackle these carbon projects related, community centered carbon projects kind of. So finally they are the one who are working more and giving their key observations. Key community stakeholders are who are like farmers, fishers, women, youth, elders, tribal knowledge holders, who now serve as a first community climate stewards, and they collect, interpret this environmental data, and they identify the trends and work with local institutions, and then help transport and translate this information into daily decisions in the near future. So from there they guess, okay, based upon the cropping patterns, based upon the fishing patterns, based upon the temperature, soil, rainfall, they monitor, they interpret, and they explain based upon their indigenous knowledge. At the panchayat level this is all happening, and they complement this gram panchayat development plans and programs such as climate resilient village, strengthening vulnerability assessment, crop diversification decisions, and natural resource management. At block and district levels these are working strong, and they are giving the information. It's a kind of bottom up approach అన్నమాట. అంటే from village level, from community based, from block level, they are giving the information to the state and central level. From there, by utilizing the technology with taking help of all the information and analysis which they are giving relevant to the observations done by them, they are coming up with a few observations, and they are from there they are predicting the future changes and dynamics in this nature, climate change, environment, etc. అన్నట్టు. So key aim is long term institutionalization and creation of a permanent green workforce where training modules, applications, field protocols, dashboards, etc. can be done. So this community based MRVs are being proposed for integration into community colleges, industrial training institutions, forestry, agricultural institutions, etc., and Panchayati Raj training centers, so that more number of people can be coming into this and more people can give lots of information. From there, by the problem can be solved based upon this access to resources and support from this local adaptation and environmental observations. This is what they are talking about, and it is a wonderful article. It is completely talking about climate change perspectives, observations from very, using the very basic knowledge, observations, and the experiences of the local communities, and from there by taking decisions at the national and global level. And when the tools of science are shared rather than concentrated, and when governance grows from the ground up, climate action becomes more democratic and more resilient. This is what the conclusion is. So it is highly important article, and please make sure you have to write this. It's expected questions. Without any hesitation, you will get a question on something related to community based MRVs, you are monitoring or tracking climate change. What kind of suggestions you can give? Ante you can talk about this Tamil Nadu model as an example. And these communities who observe climate change daily and bear its greatest impacts must lead monitoring efforts and governing funds, accessing resources that support again local adaptation and everything. So this is how they are working, and these can be proposed by coming up with more skill development and industrial infrastructural connectivity based upon these people, and institutionalization of these kind of techniques is very much important, and Tamil Nadu is wonderfully doing it. So we can take these kind of as an example and చెప్పి you can write it in your mains perspective అండి. And prelims కూడా CBMRV is very much important. So this is all about today's editorials, and yes, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, always important. Try to write them in your notes Sunday, and if possible you can quote this as an example. Prelims కూడా చాలా important. So these are all about today's Hindu editorial current affairs analysis and answer writing strategies అండి. వీటికి relevant గా నేను questions frame చేసి మన official telegram లో post చేస్తాను. You go through them and write them. And yes, there are few articles relevant to prelims facts kind of. I'll just give it as a fodder in our official telegram channel and no need to much delve into, but yes, make sure whenever you are doing any international relations or geographies or locations related to, go through at last must and should ka. So this is all about today's session. I hope it's really helpful. Prepare well, study well, maintain that consistency, and yes, I given a question, no, you try to answer about that. What are the landlocked countries, or what about the double landlocked countries? Just try to answer them. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.